She had never meant for anything serious to happen. It was supposed to be just a joke, a moment of amusement. But when the human boy named Kale stepped into the chamber where the ancient armor of her warrior ancestors was displayed, something changed. The steps echoed softly against the smooth obsidian tiles of the hall. The blue torches lining the walls flickered, as if sensing something. In reality, alien girl, with deep green skin and silver eyes, felt the tiny hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She chuckled nervously, pretending not to notice her unease. "Hey, human," she said, "try this on. Let's see if it fits your kind." Kale raised an eyebrow. He had learned not to take Riala too seriously. She was clever, fast, and sarcastic, but also kind in her own way. With a grin, he stepped forward and looked at the armor, a dark suit made of an unknown metal that shimmered like stars submerged in oil. Its curves were elegant, its edges sharp, and it pulsed faintly as if breathing. "Is this safe?" Kale asked jokingly, but already slipping off his jacket before Riala could answer. He slid one foot into the leg piece, and instantly the armor reacted. It hissed, softly unfolded like living metal, and wrapped around his leg like a second skin. Riala blinked. "Wait, that's not supposed." Kale was already halfway in the chest piece, unfolded, wrapped around his torso, and a faint glow pulsed in the core. Beneath his sternum, Kale gasped, but not in pain and shock. It felt warm, alive, powerful, and then the helmet rose slowly, hovering for a moment before sealing around his head. The world blinked out, then back again, and Kale was somewhere else. The hall was gone. He stood in a massive void, a battlefield of memories. Images flashed before him, 1,000 warriors, all dressed in the same armor, charging into battle against horrors beyond imagining. He saw monsters made of flame serpents with wings of ice titans that cracked planets with their fists, and through it all his vision was filled with a single figure, a tall being, cloaked in golden light, fighting at the front, wielding power like a storm. Then the voice came deep, ancient, and echoed inside his mind, "Your chosen blood remembers you. And you remember the blood." Kale tore the helmet off, stumbling backward, gasping. Riala caught him, eyes wide. She looked terrified. "What did you see? What happened?" she asked. Kale looked at her, the armor still clinging to his body, still glowing. "I saw a war from your past, or maybe my future," he whispered. Riala stepped back, eyes locked on the armor that should have remained dormant for 1,000 years. That armor was forged for the Guardian. The last one died during the collapse. She whispered it shouldn't respond to anyone else unless Kale stared at her. "Unless what?" "Unless you're descended from them, from the ancients," Riala said, barely audible. Kale frowned. "That's impossible. Inhuman." Riala shook her head. "Not everything human history is written in truth. Your people vanished for 500 years, once during the Great Darkness. We don't know what happened to you, where you went, who you mixed with, what the Guardian's blood survived in your line." Kale felt the armor tightening around him, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was like it was waiting, asking for him to speak to command. He focused, and suddenly a panel of light hovered in front of him. It displayed data, energy levels, weapon systems, hidden modules, and a map of the facility. Riala stumbled back. "Again? Okay, that's not funny anymore. Take it off, Kale." "I don't know if I can," he said. "The armor is listening to me, responding like it's been waiting." And then the door at the far end of the hall opened, not from any of them, but because the armor had pinged something deep below the surface of the planet. "A lock of memory, a vault you activated," Riala said, pale, her species known for emotional control now visibly shaking. "Do you know what you just did, Kale?" "I didn't mean to. I just put it on you, said to try." And he defended, but even he could feel the shift. The air was different now, heavier. Something deep had awakened. They went down together to the vault passage that opened beneath the armor chamber. It wasn't just a stairway. It was a test, glyphs lit with their steps. The air grew colder. The walls shimmered with images from forgotten time. And Kale walked like someone remembering a dream, not like a stranger. Every step made the armor glow brighter. Riala watched him, not with fear now, but maybe you were meant to find this. Maybe this is why you came here. Maybe you're the reason we never erase this place, she said quietly. They reached a chamber wider than anything above, a dome lined with pillars, each etched with the face of a warrior, and in the center a pedestal with a floating sphere. As Kale stepped toward, the sphere blinked and shattered into a star of energy, surging into his chest. The armor flared. Kale screamed, but it wasn't pain. It was power, floods of it, knowledge, memories, training, simulations, languages he had never heard but now understood. He collapsed for a moment, breathing heavily, then looked up, eyes glowing bright. White, the chamber recognized, and the whole facility began to shift, rooms realigning, doors opening. Riala stood back, stunned. "Guardian." She whispered the word, hadn't been spoken aloud in generations. "Guardian." Kale looked down at his hands, then at her. "Yeah, I think that's what I am now." They emerged from the depths to find the sky above darkened not with night, but with ships, massive ones bearing symbols neither of them had seen before, but which Kale somehow recognized. "They're not yours," he said. "No," Riala replied. "I don't know who they are." Kale stared at them, armor tightened like it knew what was coming. "And so did he. They're coming for the vault for power. And I don't think I'll ask nicely." The ships began to descend, and Riala ran to activate defenses, but the systems were already online. In response to Kale, he raised his hand, and the towers around the facility lit up with ancient light cannons slowly rising from the ground. "This is impossible," Riala whispered. "You're controlling with thought." Kale felt calm despite the looming war. He felt right, like a puzzle piece had clicked. He turned to her. "This wasn't a joke, Riala. This was fate." The ships opened, and figures emerged, not soldiers, but hunters clad in dark robes, wielding weapons unfamiliar, but deadly. They saw him, and hesitated, clearly recognizing the armor, even after thousands of years. Then one stepped forward and said in a broken dialect, "Hand over the key or die." Kale didn't move. Instead, he raised his arm, and a pulse of energy knocked the hunters back. The armor, now fully awake, responded to the threat with elegance and violence. Like a living entity, one of the hunters charged fast. But Kale moved faster, twisting to the side, and striking with a blade that materialized from his forearm. Hunter fell. The others paused, reconsidering, then retreated back to the ship, but not before one sent a signal, a beacon. Riala paled. "Reinforcements." Kale nodded. "Then we stand and hold this place as long as it takes." Riala looked at him and smiled slightly, just like a guardian, which he said with a proud nod. The next wave came bigger, faster, with weapons designed to level cities. But the armor had more secrets, and Kale was beginning to understand them The facility became a fortress. Its defenses resurrected from slumber under Kale's command. They held the line for hours, then days, Riala fighting. Beside him, not just as a bystander, but as a warrior of her own. And as they fought, Kale realized something deep in the armor didn't just awaken him, it chose him not because of his bloodline, but because of his choice to step in when no one else would protect the fight, to be more than human. At night, if they had any, Kale would sit with Riala staring at the stars and ask questions about her world, her people, their history. And she would answer, sometimes gently, sometimes bitterly, sometimes with tears it turned. Out her people had once ruled 1,000 systems and watched it crumble from within. Guardians like the one Kale had become were symbols of unity, now only myths. And when she looked at him, it wasn't just awe anymore. It was belief. The final battle came sudden and brutal. A mothership broke orbit and sent down its elite warriors, beings that even the armor recognized as old enemies. They crashed into ground, and for a moment Kale thought they might be overwhelmed, but then the facility itself responded, not just weapons, but voices. Holograms of past guardians joined him in spirit, guiding his hands and thoughts. He fought like 10 men, fast, fluid, powerful. And when the final enemy fell, Riala stood beside him, eyes wide, with something almost like worship. He changed everything. She said, "No, Kale." Replied, "We did." But she shook her head. "No, you changed." The armor slowly receded, its job done. But something lingered in Kale's spark that would never leave. He looked out across the field of battle, across the stars, and knew this was just the beginning of something bigger. Fate hadn't just played a joke. It had told a truth long buried. A human wore the armor of the ancients, and he had awakened the stars.